I'm going to start today's web seminar with a little irony, and that is this. I'm going to share with you my experience with the return path. And if you don't know who return path is, they're basically the 800-pound gorilla in deliverability. They control billions of inboxes around the world in their email filter. So here they're telling us about, delivery and tips, and it's a great company, no question. But here's the irony, and that is if I go to my junk folder and I do a search for return path, you see how much of their email actually gets put into my junk folder. Almost all of it. So there's the irony, and that is, you have a company that is like the end all be all almost in email delivery, yet a lot of their own email is going to junk. Now, I don't say this to give Return Path a hard time. We love them, and they obviously serve a very important purpose for all of us. But again, it just goes to show that if you're just going off the raw statistics of what you see in reports from companies like Return Path and Litmus, it's not going to do the job. You actually have to apply a lot of the best practices that they talk about and we talk about is a marketing platform, and that is to go about it with a data marketing approach. So that's a great introduction into today's web seminar, because I'm going to show you how to properly go about building your reputation with Gmail so you can be in full control of your biggest asset, which is your list. So I'm going to start today's web seminar presentation with the end result in mind. Like, what are the results that we want to get? So we're looking at our performance chart of what we have called a Gmail engagement warming drip. And what we're doing is we're going out to a section, or I should say multiple segments of Gmail recipients every single day with a special offer. And we're doing this, we're not focused on a transaction, we're not trying to sell them anything, we're just in the business of making friends. And what we're doing is we're just making deposits into a bank, look at it that way, a credibility bank, because we want to fight for the privilege to continue to reliably speak to these people every single day. And you know what? Sending out email to everybody every day, which is what this client is doing, is a huge load because they're going to drop off. So you got to keep it interesting. You got to use some forethought as to what is it that your message can be to get people not to get basically annoyed and, again, drop off. So we look at our chart of where we first started the program with this client, and you see that we started out pretty well on our trend line, and then it dipped. And we believe it's because we probably put Gmail's heuristics and algorithms in a bit of shock on the brand. But you see that we were, through the strategy, we've been gradually building our reputation, and we're starting to level off at what is about over a 10% response rate right now, which may not seem great. But again, you got to understand, this company was only getting 2% opens when we started. Now I'm going to sort of give you the model of how we get the warming set up. Now, what we do is we've got multiple segments, as I had mentioned, that we're sending out to every single day as part of this workflow. This first segment represents everybody who has opened one of this company's emails. And then we've got the other segments, which these are people who never opened an email. But you see that we're pouring, dozens of new openers or creating new openers every single day with our messaging strategy. And again, the cool thing is they get poured back into this first segment. So let's look at how this segment performs. We've got 12,301 emails that were sent, and we got 5,409 people open. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's nearing 50%, and that's precisely what Google wants to see. They want to see high engagement. Now, these other guys, obviously are not engaging as well. They're way below average. But the good news is we're building up this dynamic momentum because we know these people are opening. So we're dynamically adding them into this first segment. So we build momentum of reputation with Google for the day, and they're letting us get by with some stuff. So ideally what's going to happen is we're going to have a head-in audience. We know that they're going to be opening to the tune of about 50% throughout the day. So what we're going to want to see is obviously, getting into the tens of thousands through this gradual warming process. So this is not spray and pray. This is not, hey, I'm going to try to sell a bunch of stuff to my Gmail audience, and if I'm getting low responses, I'm going to just go out and find a cheap ESP and send twice as much. No, because we actually have statistics that show that tactic works way against you, and you end up just wasting all of your money. So what I'm going to do now is just breeze through a couple charts, and we actually have another web seminar that I did about what these charts are about, and you can check that out if you missed it. There's a recording on YouTube. But this is another way where we're going to be building up every single day. We're going to build more clickers. These are all net new. More Gmail fans, and a Gmail fan is anyone who's opened 6 times or more in 30 days. And then also our Gmail openers. And you pretty much saw all that. But this is the result we want. Again, precisely every single day, building more and more momentum across the audience. So now what I'll do is I'll get into the instruction part of how do you go about getting all this set up to build momentum, build your engagement, your reputation with your Gmail users. So we have a workflow wizard. You heard me use that term, and basically it's a stream. It's a string of different messages, and nested within each message is a set of rules for those different segments. Now, as I had explained, the first segment that we chase after are any Gmail people who have opened, and that goes across any campaign. So your tool, your marketing automation tool, maybe your ESP might have this capability to do, automated marketing. Certainly if it's a cheap one, it won't. But it's simple. Anybody who's opened an email, that's the rule, as you see on your screen, it's going to get poured into the segment. Now, the subsequent segments, what we had done is the client had come to us from another email tool, and they gave us a list of all their different openers, but people who hadn't clicked. So long story short is we got a bunch of people who we don't know if they're active or what their quality is. So we basically pour them into a different segment so we can slice them up. Now, that list of all those people who were Gmail, that was about 150,000 people, but we don't want to do 150,000 people every day because that's going to upset Google. So that's why we cut down the list a little bit, and we're doing them in really 50,000 unit tranches. Okay, so we got one segment of that list, that's about 25K, then another segment of the list, that's about another 25K. Just the distinction there is we just wanted to split it up a little bit so we could play with some messaging and do some testing as far as how one subject line would do versus the next, what one offer might do versus the next, rather than just going out to the full 50,000. Just split it up a little bit so we can play around and, again, optimize and see what works. Okay, then the final segment that we have, just not to leave it off for a few, is that we just got all these other people who were part of a list of people who had clicked in the past. The real key takeaway of all of this is each message that's going out in that workflow step is you see, it's divided up so we can study the audience. That's one thing. And then again, what we're doing is we're getting all those openers into one specific segment because it's going to allow us to speak to that audience that's opening to the tune of about 50%. And it's going to help, again, build momentum within Gmail. Now, besides the workflow, there's another very effective tactic that you want to use for the engagement, improving yourself in the eyes of Google. And you can do it through automation. So the tactic we applied, and you probably heard a lot about it by now, is that you're just doing some retargeting based on where people go on your website. So we're able to see in our platform if people hit different category pages. So we've got a bunch of rules set up, and one example I've got highlighted here is anyone who hits a memory card oriented page. So it's a broad category. And what we do is we automatically trigger an email follow-up to those people. We here at Makesbridge, we call them Autobots. So you see how awesome the Autobot performs for us. You know, we're a 56% plus open rate. Again, Google's going to love it. And you see what the click rate is. It's absolutely gangbusters. Now, if I bring up my other guys here, you still see I'm netting an average of over 50% open, and look at the click rate. It's huge. That is momentum building. So every single day, you know, we've got a few emails that go out because these are auto triggers. And again, you see this is not like carpet bombing, huge email volume going out. It's a little bit, right? But we're building up our tiny little tiles of credibility, if you will, with Gmail, and it's helping us repair our damaged reputation. And, you know, as I mentioned before, I mean, this client only had about a 2% Gmail open rate, and it was even going down from there too. They were in a vicious email marketing cycle, sending more email, damaging their reputation even more. It was kind of a hot mess. So the next thing we have is the nurture drips. So it's great that you build a little bit of, you know, momentum with the auto trigger, but then it's the afterwards. I mean, you want to keep on dripping on these people. So that's the marketing automation principle, as I'm sure you're, you know, aware of by now. But again, if we're trying to not only solve for the ROI, you know, and the responsiveness of the emails, but just as importantly, you know, we're having to solve for Gmail reputation, drips are very important. And you see here in the statistics, again, we got over 50% open rate, and we're doing really nice on the clicks. And this other drip, which is oriented towards an outdoor category. So we're doing, you know, interest segmentation here. Again, well over 50%, comfortably above 50%, and the click rates are high too. And again, Gmail is seeing all of this. So as a marketer, you're not only stoked because you're going to be getting these high response rates, but again, you're in this virtuous data marketing cycle, as we call it, to build your reputation, and it's just going to build upon itself. What I'll do here just quickly is I'll show you how it all works here. So similar to the auto trigger, we've got these people in the drips, and you see it's not thousands per day, you know, it's just dozens, a few dozens, a handful. But again, this is across multiple nurture tracks. So the cumulative deal here is you're going to be sending like maybe 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 automated messages per day. And again, super duper high opens, super duper high clicks, building reputation. And again, it all works together to properly warm your brand within Gmail, so you are ultimately in control of your most important asset, which is your list. Now, everything you see here, it's not that expensive to do. What it does is just requires that you've got some forethought and you're doing your thinking about how are you going to approach your audience. And you need to get out of spray and pray marketing, because it's a vicious cycle and it just doesn't work. For me, I'm surprised that mass blasting has lasted as long as it has. I founded Makesbridge back in 2002, and frankly, I didn't think that mass mailing as a medium at the time was going to last more than 5 years. Well, it surprised me that it has lasted this long, but again, I can tell you that the people who are not applying any sort of data awareness to their email marketing, we see it all the time, they drop off like flies, and really their whole method of marketing and getting out there is doomed. And you can turn it around. And to do that, if you have any questions about this, come to makesbridge.com/better delivery and submit the form on the website. And what we do is we'll have it take a look at your business model, learn a little bit about your marketing habits, and see if we can help you turn things around. Okay, everyone. So, hey, thanks a lot for attending today's video seminar. I hope you got a lot out of it. You know, we're here to help, not to sell. And look forward to seeing you on the next web seminar. Thanks.